Yeah? Okay, we're going to move quickly on to vasculature, whatever. Anyway, so, vasculature. Blood supply arises from the subcutaneous tissue, where it divides into a deep dermal plexus. So, blood supply arises from subcutaneous tissue. Blood flow arises from subcutaneous tissue. Let's zoom out. Blood arises. Where's my pencil? Blood arises from subcutaneous tissue. Yeah? And there's artery and vein. Blood arises from subcutaneous tissue, where it divides into the deep dermal plexus, divides into our deep dermal plexus and our superficial dermal plexus. Blood flow arises from subcutaneous tissue, is our artery and vein, into our deep dermal plexus and our superficial dermal plexus. So here is our dermis, I think, and here is our epidermis. Oh, here's our epidermis, here is our dermis. Cool. This may be subcutaneous or something. Anyway, okay. So it's important that there's a deep dermal plexus and a superficial dermal plexus. And why is it important? Is that this enables 2 levels of control of blood flow. So we get 2 levels of control of blood flow. There's also lots of these things called arteriovenous anastomoses. Let's see these arteriovenous anastomoses. Here's one. Here's one, here's one, arteriovenous anastomoses. And what are arteriovenous anastomoses? Let's see over here. So there are lots of things called arteriovenous anastomoses. They're closed when cold, and they're open when they're hot. And what are arteriovenous anastomoses? They are things which connect arteries to veins. Cool? They're closed when they're cold, so less blood flow to the surface. So let's see here, these are closed when they're cold. If they're closed, that means there's less blood flow to the surface. So if this is closed, then that means blood will carry on flowing through here and less blood flow to the surface. Chilling. When they're open, when it's hot, they're open. This means more blood flow to the surface. Cool. This is controlled. This is an extra point, maybe come up in the exam. It's controlled by sympathetic vasomotor neurons, innervating the AVAs and arteriovenous anastomoses. Now let's move on to our innervation. Okay, so there is a lot of different types of nerves in our skin. I've got 6 types here. We'll go through them quickly. Number 1, these are free nerve endings. They're multimodal, so that means they have multiple functions. They're able to sense pain, heat, they're also mechanosensitive. Mechanosensitive kind of means like movement, pressure, things like that. Number 2 is our hair follicle receptor. Yeah, our hair follicle receptor, they're abundant mechanoreceptors. So hair follicle receptor, they're abundant mechanoreceptors. Number 3 is our Ruffini endings or corpuscles. So I think corpuscles for all these 3 anyway. Anyway, Ruffini endings, corpuscles. Number 4 is our mesinocorpuscles. Number 5 is our Passintan corpuscles. Let's see that. Oh God. Passintan corpuscles. Anyway, okay. Anyway, these 3 here, so 3, 4, 5, they respond to pressure. So the mechanoreceptors, and each nerve ending is triggered by a different amount of pressure. So each of these nerves may be triggered by different amounts of pressure. And number 6, finally, is a Merkel cell disc. Yeah, and it's linked to Merkel cells. Merkel cells, as we saw, if we go back, these are Merkel cells. Yeah, so those are the nerves that we're talking about. That's a Merkel cell. We're talking about that nerve. That nerve is represented here in the diagram as that, number 6. Cool. And finally, vitamin D. So vitamin D, it regulates calcium and phosphate metabolism. Vitamin D regulates calcium and phosphate metabolism. 90% of vitamin D is produced by the skin. And how is this 90% of vitamin D is produced by the skin? By what? It's produced by our diet. 90% of vitamin D is produced by the skin by our diet. So 90% of vitamin D is produced by the skin or in our skin by our diet. An exact example, oily fish. And another important point, just to wrap up, A decrease in vitamin D in childhood is called rickets. A decrease in vitamin D in adults is called osteomalaya. Osteomalaya. Malaya. Why are these words so hard? Osteomalaya. Cool. Jazakallah khairan. Hope you enjoyed. That's just... damn. Damn. Oof. Damn.